I'm going to jump right into this video. I got to try to speed these up. They're so big. There's so much to do. Anybody following along? I've got some big news as far as, I would say interpretation techniques. Yeah, some big breakthroughs here. So pay attention if you're interested, and let's talk through this. What we're going to do here is talk about motifs. And the reason is, if you look up on the screen right here, what we have up is chapter 14 in Genesis. And let me just read the first 10 verses. Now, this is supposed to play out in the psyche according to me. If this is built on a template and it's made a certain way, it's up to me to figure out how the hell this thing works in my head, how this becomes a psychological path. It does not, well, let's just read these 10 verses and see what's happening. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All these were joined together in the valley of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzums and Ham, and Emims and Sheva, and Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, and El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to Enmishphat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazantamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar, and they joined battle with them in the valley of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, with the Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the valley of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. Okay, this is something I can look at as a block and say, this is going to exist elsewhere. What is a motif? First of all, a motif is something that occurs in the story repeatedly, or it reoccurs in the story. It may only be a couple of times. Somebody told me recently, you're using that term incorrectly, and I'm going to say, no, I'm not. But the term is bigger than what people think. In a quick non-biblical example, we've got something here. I just copied this from the internet. In Kurt Vonnegut's novel, Slaughterhouse-Five, there's a phrase that marks every death in the book. So it goes. The phrase is unavoidable, much like death itself, and it draws the reader's attention to the book's larger theme of inevitability. The phrase, so it goes, is an example of a motif, a recurring story element with symbolic significance. Motifs direct readers' attention to larger themes and engage them on an intuitive level. They are great tools for creating depth in your writing. Okay, without going elsewhere, Genesis has recurring motifs. Let's look at them. All right, and I do want to say, just heads up here, that we're going to find things that are verbal motifs. You're going to read it and go, oh yeah, I just read something that sounded the exact same thing last chapter. Oh, last chapter, yeah, that's reoccurring. But there's also going to be reoccurring concepts, things that are deeper. You may not think so. A flood does not sound like a destruction of Sodom. Those are going to be conceptual things that we're going to look at later and see that indeed they are part of a recurring motif, but is very difficult to see because it goes to the level of conceptual, not verbal. Then, if you're looking at a lot of material from antiquity and you see patterns between different myths and religions, bingo, same thing. Those are motifs as well. It's not just the words that repeat, and so it goes, and so it goes. That's not all. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The motifs get deep. Flood stories between cultures are motifs. They're reoccurring motifs. They don't reoccur in the story. They reoccur in humanity, in history. They reoccur on a bigger scale. All right, the part that I'm going to look at right here to start with, it's not going to be exact verbiage, but you'll recognize it. Where we are here at the start of chapter 12, this is where Abram is being called by God, Abram and Sarai, and is being set up and getting told what to do. And what does he do? He puts them in a place, Canaan, takes them there, gets them all set up, tells them, promises them he's going to give them the land and bless those who bless those and curse you, those who curse you. It's all yours. And then what happens, though? There was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. So what we see is that God put them in a place where there's a famine. When we get down into chapter 26, we've got God beginning to call Isaac's term. But where does he put Isaac, and there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, into Gerar. So, once again, we see God putting Abraham into a land of famine. Abram and Abraham are the same person, just different iterations. Abram was started, God turned him into Abraham. That was the calling. But in both cases, where are we starting? In a famine. All right, we get down into chapter 42. It's starting to change up a little bit. There's some things happening actually just before 42. We're ending up in 41. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians. And the famine was really bad in the land of Egypt. And the countries came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy corn because the famine was so bad. Get down into 42:5. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. So we see this famine in the land of Canaan a lot. All right, there's another recurring motif you shall recognize. It's not going to sound exactly the same. It's not going to be word for word the same, but you're going to look at it and say conceptually it's the same thing. Chapter 12, Abram and Sarai and Pharaoh involved here. Abram, Sarai, and Pharaoh. And it came to pass, when he was near Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, Behold, you're a beautiful woman. Therefore, when the Egyptians see you, they're going to say, This is his wife, and they'll kill me. But they'll say, they'll let you live. Tell them you're my sister, and that happens. Pharaoh takes her in, and Abram gets animals and slaves. Now, we get down to 20, Abraham, Sarah, and Abimelech. Different. It went from Pharaoh to Abimelech, but Abraham and Sarah are Abram and Sarai in a later iteration. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur and stayed in Gerar. And Abraham said of his wife, She's my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream at night and said to him, Behold, you are but a dead man, for the woman which you have taken, she's a man's wife. And Abimelech had not come near her, so he says, Go ahead and go. All right, so what was the reoccurring motif? Same man is scared and gives up his wife to somebody. We get down to chapter 26 when we've got Isaac, Rebekah, and Abimelech. Abimelech again, but Isaac and Rebekah, now the offspring. And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, She's my sister, for he feared to say she's my wife, lest the men should kill me because she's so fair to look upon. So here we have the same thing. He's afraid that they're going to kill him because she's pretty. And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw that they were like making out. He was sporting with Rebekah, his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, Yo, she's your wife. Okay, I'm going to stop that there. What we see, though, is that in each case, there's a recurring motif. The outcome is different each time. The outcome changes. But in each case, it starts out with the man is afraid for his life, and he's ready to give up his wife, saying, It is my sister. However, the first time, that goes through. The second time, it's stopped. This time, it doesn't even go so far as getting married. It gets stopped before she even gets in the door. So there's a recurring motif with a twist. You look at that and go, okay, that's a reoccurring motif. I see that. That famine keeps popping up starts at 12, gets into the mid-20s, then in the 40s. There's a sequence of something going on. Not only is that word repeating, but you can step back and go, it's also repeating in a kind of a sequence. There's a chunk of things that's going on, and then it repeats again, and then a chunk of things going on, and then it repeats again. Now, what I'm going to say is that it actually occurred before. This is where we're going to go from verbal to now conceptual. And you know what? As I do my videos, I talk about these all the time. I just don't call them motifs. I call them recurring patterns, template resequencing, things like that, which is what they are. All right, if we go all the way back up to the beginning and where we start right off in life, it's going to sound different. When we get up into creation, here's what happens. And the Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. So right there, that doesn't sound the same, does it? You're put in the Garden of Eden. Then Eve emerges from us. So we've got Adam and Eve both together. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Okay, so we've got a beginning. It sounds radically different. This is a creation, though. But watch what happens here. Now the serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field, and he tempted her, and she said, We can eat of the trees of the garden, but not of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or the tree of life, or else we will die. So they're put in a place to begin with. What you have to notice here is that there is food to eat. There's not a famine, but they're not supposed to eat certain things, and they're allowed to eat stuff that's in the garden, but not these two special trees. They went ahead and go and eat. Eve goes ahead and eats of one tree anyway, and what happens? They leave the garden. So even though the other two there was a famine and they had to leave, in this case what we see is you're not supposed to eat certain things, but once you do, you're out of here. That is a recurring motif that is very difficult to see. You would have to understand how it interprets that we are Adam and Eve starting out in life devoid. That when we get down to the chapter 12 in the beginning of Abram and Sarai, we are Abram and Sarai now. And we are starting out, and we are in a land of famine because we're children. We don't have anything. That's a representative, metaphorical idea of our life experience at that age. Then we go off and live elsewhere. We're going to go off and have life experiences and accumulate things as a result, is what's going to happen there. And we will see that as part of the deeper we dig into it, the more we will see that. So now what we're seeing is not only are there verbal motifs, but also conceptual motifs, as well as the destructions of things. Again, those are motifs that are difficult to see. A flood drowning out the world does not sound like the destruction of Sodom. Or later on, you get into a downstream story, the destruction of Jericho. Those do not sound the same. That's Jericho, that's Sodom, that's the world. No, those are not the same thing. However, when you interpret them as something that plays out in the psyche, the world as an analog means my life experience. Sodom that needs to be destroyed is my early self, my early belief system. Jericho represents the same thing, but from a different author and a different story. Then they become the same motif when you realize that they all three represent the destruction of my early self. But without interpretation, you would not look at those and say, those are a common motif. We have more. All right, another fun thing that is not found in verbiage, but is in the concepts. What we're going to see right up here is that God disappears from the scene and then reappears later. As we get up into the Cain and Abel story right after that, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So Cain went away from the Lord, and it specifies east of Eden, east. Pay attention to the east. But the Lord is not around in any way, shape, or form until we get back down to, where are we? We're in chapter 6. It's getting time for the world to go bad. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So with no guidance, without doing anything else, leaving Cain after Cain and Abel and then just disappearing, he looks back and says, everything got messed up down there. I'm going to destroy it. But God is there and talking to Noah. Okay. It goes on. The next time we see a reoccurrence of that, we're going to go back to the beginning of the Abram and Sarai story, which is the next sequence along the way. And what we're going to see here, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said, unto your seed will I give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. And then he removed from there unto a mountain on the east of Bethel. So he did the same thing that Cain did. He left the presence. But remember, Cain went east of Eden, and here we have east of Bethel. See that similarity too? We are seeing motifs within motifs. Pitched a tent, went somewhere else, and called upon the name of the Lord, but the Lord is not there at all. What we're going to find out as you look through here, you're going to see things like building an altar to the Lord, or after these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision. You see that there is a connection between Lord and Abram along the way, but it's visions, dreams, messages from angels of the Lord, things like that. The Lord himself is not there, does not return until we get to 17, when it's time to convert Abram to Abraham, which is the next iteration. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. Okay, so the motif here is what? It doesn't sound verbally the same, except when you read it and understand it, comprehend it, and follow it. If you really track the story, you're saying God disappears, things go bad, then God comes back. Here, starting over in 12, God disappears, things go bad, God comes back. That is a motif that is nested at a deeper level than verbiage. I want to take that God disappearing concept all the way out to the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. I've got that up here now. Apsu is the creator, if you don't know who it is. It was then the first being Apsu, who was their source, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to them all, I don't need to go through the whole reading. Apsu would be the creator god. So if we move along here, what happens is there's a destruction that takes over. Gods are created to help out. They become raucous. They get out of control. These guys want to destroy them. Now that represents the early self, wanting to heal the early self, but the difficult thing that's happening. Ea, right here, you see Ea? Ea is a bad element. Ea represents the early first self. God who is insightful, recognized their intentions. They were getting ready to trap him. But okay, or go and fight off the old. But what happens is he formulated a solution for it all, planning it out well. He concocted it with superlative skills. His spell was perfect. When he chanted it, he calmed the turbulent waters. An abounding sleep overcame Apsu. He became pacified. He caused him to enter a deep sleep, seeped in tranquility, while his officer Mumu, his advisor, was left in a trance. Then Ea removed his belt and took his own crown from his head and took his mantle of brilliance and dressed himself in it. Then he forced Apsu down under his feet and crushed him and bound Mumu, laying him down over him crosswise. Then he established his own residence on top of the Apsu. And you see that part where it says, then he took Mumu, holding him by a nose leash. Think of yourself in the story. This is you. I am that I you. I am that I am. I you. Yeah, all of us are. Ea, we are Mumu. Mumu holding him by a nose leash. This is our early self. Mumu is the part of us that goes, damn, you know better than that. Ea is the one that says, yeah, but I'm giving in. I'm in charge. You don't win. I got you by the nose leash. This is us knowing better, but not doing better. Okay, so this represents it looks like here in this case, the creator god was put in a trance and just put away. We don't need to go through the whole story. What I want to do is say that Apsu is then gone for a while, except for what happens later on. Here we have as Marduk's finishing up the process of wiping out the old and creating new. He made the Apsu, Nudimmud's dwelling, entirely smooth, and the Lord then measured out the Apsu's total dimensions. The immense shrine which he built to resemble it was Eshara. Okay, this is much older. Well, it is older. It was coexisting with early parts of Genesis. But what we see here, if you look at it, is that Apsu, the creator god, was somehow trapped away and then later on is recreated. And it happens at the same time, in the same sequence. In the other stories, when things start to go bad, God disappears, and when it's out of control, or it's time for the internal journey, the called hero to be called, that is when God, Apsu, returns. That's a common motif, not just in Genesis, but in other material as well. All right, the next thing I want to do is just kind of blow it open a little bit more and show how the motifs just spread all over the place. We talk about the flood. A lot of people have floods, and you can go to different cultures and you could say that's a motif. I would not call that a flood. I would call that a shared component part of a story that is purposeful. Okay, what I've got is 4 examples here. Jesus, Jason, Greek fame, King Arthur, and Luke Skywalker. Watch this. It's the same template. Jesus is called as the Son of God, has supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked disciples, and seeks the kingdom of heaven within. Jason is called as the rightful ruler, has Hera for supernatural powers, travels with the Argonauts, and seeks the golden fleece. King Arthur is called as the only one who could extract Excalibur, had Merlin for supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked knights, and seeks the Holy Grail. And it was used for the first Star Wars trilogy. The writer, director, producer said, oh, yeah, George Lucas. Lucas called as the son of Vader. And this right here was taken from Joseph Campbell's monomyth stages. Lucas called as the son of Vader, has the Force for supernatural powers, travels with special selected rebels, and seeks to save the Alliance. Okay, so do you see the common motifs? Called. Special people. All of them have supernatural powers or access to supernatural powers. They all travel with a group of hand-selected somebody, somehow. Disciples, Argonauts, knights, rebels. And they're all seeking something. the kingdom of heaven within, the Holy Grail, the golden fleece, or saving the alliance. Those are patterns that are very specific. And you would also notice if you look in there, they all feature a doubter or a problem in their midst. We got Judas with Jesus, Lancelot with Arthur, C-3PO with Luke, and Acostus with Jason. He's the son of Pelias, who Jason's supposed to get the land back from Pelias. Pelias is the bad uncle, and Acostus is the bad uncle's son sent along to spy. So, yeah, do you see that? Those are motifs, shared motifs, not just repeating lines in a book or a story, but repeating lines and concepts in all of antiquity. All right, there's a method to my madness. I'm getting somewhere. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is that there are motifs, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for things that are going to be common, sort of conceptual things. As we're trying to interpret this, it's hard to, I don't think you can grab one chunk of material without being able to make cross-references and figure this stuff out. You have to be able to, for me anyway, look at a myriad of things. So I like to put things side by side, and that's how you find this stuff. That's how Joseph Campbell actually found the monomyth template, by doing that. He's looking at these. What is that? Those are shared motifs. That's what that monomyth template is. Shared motifs from a lot of places. Okay, so the reason I'm saying that is because 14 right here, this weird thing read right in the beginning, is a motif. We're going to find this elsewhere, but it's going to sound different. So if we know that, let's take a look at it again. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elisar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations. We go through all this thing, and it gets down here to the end, 9 and 10, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elisar. 4 kings with 5. And the valley of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. All right, this stuff is old, thick, complicated. We're going to go to Jesus, who maintained all of the teaching, and find this in a very simple way, in a much different way. It's going to be the same teaching, but it will not sound the same because of the distance at the time. The way there was 1,500, maybe 2,000 years between this and the Jesus material. Life, humanity, outlooks, civilization changed radically in 2,000 years. The words are going to sound different. All right, here we're going to find it. Jesus' pivotal teaching. This is very important, critical work, and they're trying to streamline it, it looks like to me. Luke 12. Verse 53, the father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father. The mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother. The mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. See how radically different that sounds? What are these, though? Let's stop and talk about it for a minute. This is a teaching that goes in the mind. It should be mentally interactive, and this is a mental hierarchy. That is, you look at civilization, how does it work? The father is the higher awareness, the son is the consciousness. The mother is going to be whatever our belief package is, and we want it to change. Okay, so what we have here is internal strife. Our higher awareness is divided against what we're doing. Our inner pile of memories are not what we want. We have this inner conflict going on. We want this, but we got that instead. God, I want happiness. I get crap all the time. All of this is internal strife. Mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. Keep it in a mental hierarchy, you can tell, because it doesn't say things like, the father against the mother-in-law, or the mother against the son. No, those are not options. This is just the father against the son against the father, the mother against the daughter against the mother. Look how tight that is. This is a mental hierarchy conflict. My inner parts are not aligned. Okay, Matthew 10:34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. The people that don't interpret that think he's there to kick ass and take names. AK-47, bang, bang, shoot him up. Yeah, people are not very bright. 35, for I am come to set a man at vari against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. So this one's worded a little bit differently. It still tells this is a man against his father, the daughter against the mother. It's worded a little bit different. See, let's see, the father, man, the man would be the consciousness, the father would be the higher awareness, the daughter is what we have inner offspring, and the daughter against her mother-in-law. The mother is who has pain in childbirth continuously. This is the conflict. And a man's foe shall be of his own household. What's your household? It's the mind. Okay, I'm going to take it out of this genre. I want to teach this from Chinese material very quickly. It's going to sound radically different, but then we can come back to it and get a better idea. We're hooking into something that's going to be common. This is from the Tao Te Ching, stanza 11. We join spokes together in a wheel, but it's the center hole that makes the wagon move. Okay, the wagon move represents us in life moving along. I am that I am. We always treat the ancient material the same way. Doesn't matter where it comes from. They're using different verbiage, but the same technique. This goes in the mind. No matter where you come from in the world and what they're teaching, they're building it the same way. Take an idea that I'm hanging on to something and put that in verbiage that's going to be unique to my people. Okay, so we join spokes together in a wheel, but it's the center hole that makes the wagon move. This represents us. We're the wheel, and the wagon moving is life experience. What have we made of that wheel? We join the spokes, we live life to create our life experiences, but it's what we hold in the hub that determines our direction in life. We shape clay into a pot, but it's the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. I'm the pot. The emptiness is my mind. We shape our lives as we grow, but it's what we have inside that becomes what we are. We may not want it. Sounds like it, huh? You might not touch that verse and go, I got stuff in there I don't want. Well, if it's left there and it's something that can be managed and it's judged, then that's effectively wanting it there. You may not consciously want it there, but you're not getting rid of it. We hammer wood for a house, but it's the inner space that makes it livable. You on board with this now? What's the house? Me, you. That's our life. The wood. We're hammering wood. We're judging life experiences and we become this house. Is it livable? What's inside that house? What's up in the attic? We work with being, but not being is what we use. We work with being. We work with physical life. We judge life experiences, but that is the judged non-being. It is what we hold in our mind that we live through, that we experience. Okay, so what this is telling us is that this is a mental process that's a judgmental process, and what we're holding on to is, in this case, it doesn't say good or bad. It's just telling us you become a product of the way you've made yourself. What we know from the Jewish material, what I know, and from actually not just from there, from all of the monomyth material, is it assumes you've had a bad life. It's a healing path. So when we get back up here, this is internal conflict, internal strife. A man's foes shall be they of his own household. What's happened? This is my household. I hammered wood for a house. Those are the foes in my household. Inner space that makes it livable. Emptiness inside holds what we want. Emptiness inside. Buddha tells us to seek emptiness. Jesus tells us to be poor in spirit. Same teaching, different genre of analogous verbiage for different purposes. Lao Tzu, it's not intended to be worshipped. It's intended to be followed. Abraham, same thing, intended to be followed, except that if you don't follow it, you might be very inclined to nevertheless carry it because the packaging is so freaking pretty. I'm going to live forever. I don't even have to understand this stuff. I just worship Jesus. Okay, sorry. I got off there. I could go up into Gnostic material. The same thing is there. But the Gnostics are grabbing things from all over the place. We know that. Men think perhaps that it's peace that I've come which to cast upon the world. They do not know it's dissension which I've come to cast upon the earth, fire, sword, and war. For there will be 5 in a house, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3, the father against the son and the son against the father. And they will stand solitary. That's a weird thing. They will stand solitary. If you do the destruction, which means I'm going to resolve the inner conflict. 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. What is that? We're in a 5-part mental hierarchy. The higher awareness, the consciousness, the subconscious, the accumulated memories, and the resultant flow of life. And when we have conflict, all of those are messed up, and the flow of life sucks. How do I reword it? I did not come to save you or the world. I have come to burn down my own mental world, for I am internally divided and conflicted. It's our early self that we've judged that we now need to let go of because it's hurting us. Gospel of Thomas, verse 19. For there are 5 trees for you in paradise, which remain undisturbed. What is paradise? Kingdom of heaven within. Peace, inner peace, nirvana. There are 5 trees for you in your mind, which remain undisturbed summer and winter, and whose leaves do not fall. Whoever becomes acquainted with them will not experience death. That is understanding those 5 component parts and aligning them. Okay, so when we get back up then to the very top one, that's what it is. And that's where it fits in the sequence. This is internal strife. This is meant to represent parts of us. Cheddar Lomer is a good thing. What we really have here, and actually I'm not going to do the interpretation of the Genesis chapter 14 in this video. I want to do that separate, but this needs to be kind of put out there. I think it's hard to follow. I think if you can start seeing what I'm doing here and following along, and as I find ways of explaining it better, it's kind of weird. It's like you look at it and you know something's there and you don't know how to describe it, but you think about it and you try, and it gets cumbersome. But anyway, okay, I wanted to say that. Motif searching, yeah, there we go. And this chunk right here, as I get into the interpretation, what does this mean? This is our internal strife. We've lost it. Who is going to be Sodom and Gomorrah? Sodom is our early self that became corrupted. When we get down here, we're going to see that the kings left and they went into the slime pits. Later on, somebody else is there. It's like, okay, yeah, the original inhabitants are gone from Sodom and Gomorrah, and they've been taken over by what? That means we started out in life being pure, and we've been taken over by our judgments and our unresolved issues, our memories, and the emotional state combined of those is what we are living through. Feeling, experiencing, and as we feel and experience them emotionally, that guides us through the collective psyche of humanity and continues to bring us more of the same. The way we feel is the way we move, emotional-wise. This is telling us how to resolve the conflict, but most people aren't going to do it. And it's written in such a way, people might look at that and go, "What? That's so goofy. Everything is right there in place." Yeah, that's when they wrote the stories for their people. They're passing them around word of mouth, and they can see all this stuff. They know these people. It's meaningful to them. If you say Jericho was burnt, was destroyed by 7 trumpets. 7 priests marching 7 times with 7 trumpets around there and blowing it, and God dropped it down. All you have to do is go say, "Look at that city that got." Look, it just got sacked. Jericho just got sacked. Let's go ahead and make this next monomyth saying that happened. It didn't happen, but so what if Jericho's there and destroyed? That doesn't mean it was destroyed in the way the Bible says. The Bible takes everything from the culture, and myth and religions do. For crying out loud, you could go find Crete and the Mediterranean Sea with chunks of wood on the shore, and that does not mean Jason sailed for the Golden Fleece. Their stories are written in a time and a place for a people that's going to make sense to them. But they're all going to be following this path. Anyway, okay. We're looking for conceptual ideas. You find something that's confusing, read it, step back, and understand that it's occurring somewhere else too, in a different way. Look for it that way. It's not just an anchored ship cannot sail, and a goat tied cannot escape, and a dog chained cannot run away. Those all sound so similar. Something can suddenly pop up that's like the tree produces seeds that grows more of itself, and you go, yeah, that's not the same thing. And you have to think them through mentally and think, okay, well, I am the ship, I am the dog, I am the goat, and each one of those attachments are holding the idea that whatever I'm mentally holding on to that I do not have resolved, I cannot escape from. So if I take that then by logical extension and say, now I am a garden, or the analog now is that there's something that's growing within me that produces seeds that produce more of itself, that I'm beginning to see the idea that there's this cyclical pain element that's happening that suddenly doesn't sound the same anymore. It takes a lot more thinking to get through it. And that's what we're going to run into here. You look at something and go, yeah, that doesn't sound like a dog tied up anymore. It doesn't sound like that anymore. Nope, this is a tree growing up, getting cut down and growing up and getting cut down. And not until you pull it by the root does it stop, or not until you let go of the anchor do you stop going around and around? It's a stopping of cycles. It's a cause and effect teaching. They're hard to see, but you got to work at it. But you have to see them for yourself. Anyway, okay, that's it. The video's gone on long enough. See you in the next one.